In Module 4, we are looking at selection. Now that we have an applicant pool, how are we going to narrow it down? Basically, we want to create a series of hurdles or barriers at each stage of the process that will reduce the applicant pool. We start with a very large applicant pool, and through these series of barriers and hurdles, we will end with a smaller, more relevant applicant pool. Only those who have successfully completed all these multiple hurdles will be selected. Some of the hurdles that we employ are to make sure that the people who want the job really want the job. They're time consuming, right? If you've applied for a job, you've got to fill out the whole application, provide references, a resume, letter of recommendations, sometimes a statement about this or that. It is not easy to apply for a job. And then you've got through the application process, you still have to do all the other stages. So each of those stages are going to weed out people who really don't want that job. It's kind of a self-screening effect. But some of the hoops that we run them through are hurdles, application, the employment test, physical ability tests, and a personal interview. So in the application stage, we're gathering very basic information about a candidate. What's their name, their contact information, what's their education or experience, just the basic general things. And keep in mind, these can all be fudged. Applications all sort of look alike, and even when they look a little bit better than others, we don't know how accurate they are because we haven't done any tests to prove that any of this information is indeed true. So it's kind of hard to weed people out through the application stage. You can weed out people who don't meet the minimum expectations for the job. So maybe we have a minimum level of education or job experience we're looking for, and if they clearly don't have it, then we can reduce the pool at that stage. More significantly, we can reduce the pool through the employment test phase. This isn't utilized for all positions, but sometimes they're used in conjunction with the interview stage. It kind of depends on the position you're looking for in the company. But the employment tests include aptitude tests, skills tests, and work samples. So maybe you're going to give them a scenario and have them perform functions, and then you score them based on how well they did. So in the hospitality industry, perhaps we're going to have a bell staff applicant, somebody who's looking for a bell staff position, lift and properly load luggage onto a cart. And we're going to see how efficiently, how carefully, how effectively they're able to do this physical ability task. Work samples are expensive and time consuming because you actually need the manager to be there or somebody in position, a powerful position, a decision-making position to be there and use their time through all the interviews. So businesses tend to shy away from these because they really are a big investment in time. But they're also very effective. So if people do make it well through these employment tests, you really have a very effective measure. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for the position. Sometimes they'll use certain positions for these tests, and then other positions won't go through these tests. Some positions use things like Wonderlic tests that test your IQ or aptitude. The federal government's known for having people take tests. Military has tests. This is the whole stage where you're given a number, and if you meet a minimum criteria, then you go on to the next phase. But the physical ability test is just a subset of those employment tests. The personal interview, this is a stage you're really excited to get to if you are applying for a job. This is your chance to show the person that you want the job and that you're really going to do a great job, and please hire me. But it's also one of the more stressful things in life. The best personal interviews are structured. So the interviewers are given a set list of questions for each applicant, and it's important that they ask the same things to each applicant for a couple reasons. One, it's easier to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. So if you have a set series of 10 questions and every applicant has been asked those same 10 questions, it's easier to compare them. You could really see where some people stand out and some people fail. It's also really important because, as you know, there are a lot of things you can ask in an interview and you can't ask in an interview. So having a set list of questions prevents the interviewer from asking illegal questions that could really get your company in hot water. The effectiveness of the interview is really based on the quality of the interviewer, and some of the things that can impact the quality of the interview are biases. And we all have biases, whether we want to have them or if we don't want to have them, if we know we have them, even if we're trying to overcompensate them, we have biases. And that's why an interview panel is effective, because you have more than one person looking at the candidate. Some of our biases include a halo effect and a horns effect. A halo effect is something that we might have in common with the applicant, something that we really like about them. Maybe we really love their way they're dressed, or the way they talk, or the way they just put together, or maybe we went to the same college as them, or we're from the same home state as them. If we have a personal connection with an applicant early on into the interview, it's considered a halo effect, and we are more likely to assess everything else that they say from that point on, all their answers and all their experience. We're going to think it's really great. We're going to look at it with a really positive light because of some element that that applicant has that we see favorable. Now, the horns effect is just the opposite. So maybe the person comes in and they're all sweaty, or they didn't dress properly, or they gave a really limp handshake, they don't give eye contact, their shoes don't match their belt, I don't know, whatever thing that would really kind of be a pet peeve to you. If they present that early on into the interview stage, you're more likely to look at all of their future responses throughout the whole interview with a very critical eye. And it's going to help determine who's going to be hired at the end. You're less likely to hire that person, even though he may be more qualified. So some of these things, these tools that we went over, they're going to help us narrow down the applicant pool from that really big pool down to a much smaller pool. And we're weeding out people that we don't think are going to be a good fit. Now, I went to business school. I have my MBA, so most of my prep in graduate school was what types of interview questions are we going to have? What types of scenarios are we going to be in? There would be big recruiting events that we would go to, and you're worried the whole time because, you know, some company, if you salted your food before tasting it, then you wouldn't be considered. If you drank alcohol, you would be eliminated, but if if the person who was interviewing you drank alcohol, then you needed to drink. You know, it was just a whole series of, kind of tests that you didn't really know that were tests just to make it through. And the company that's notorious for that right now is Google. Google has some crazy interview questions, and I included in one of your attachments for this module a list of interview questions from Google. They definitely are one of the more desirable companies right now for people, especially anybody who's in the technology or advertising field to get into. And their questions are doozies. I don't know how I would answer most of them. And one of the things that you have for your discussion board is actually how would you answer one of the sample interview questions. And this one is, you're the captain of a pirate ship, and your crew gets to vote on how the gold is divided up. If fewer than half of the pirates agree with you, you die. How do you recommend apportioning the gold in such a way that you still get a good share of the booty, but still survive? Looks like I have a little typo in there. I'll correct that before that goes. But anyway, I think that these types of questions are good to consider because while you might not get a Google level question when you apply for a job, you need to consider how you would respond to a question like that. And the point of these types of questions really are to get an open-ended conversation, to see how people approach unknown situations analytically. In the previous lecture, we talked about how long it could last with your company having more payroll expenses than income coming in. How long are you going to keep it that way? That requires a lot of analytical skills and a lot of nuances about your company and about the industry and your region, your community. Nothing in management is black and white. And so having these types of questions, I think, really would help an interviewer understand what type of person you are and whether you're going to be a good fit for the organization. And I think the hardest thing to remember when you are an applicant is that if you're not a good fit for the organization, wouldn't you rather know now and not after you spend the next 18 months of your life trying to be a good fit? It's interviews for you as well as the company. interviewing you. So just keep that in mind. And if you're not selected for a job, it's probably because you weren't a good fit and you wouldn't have been happy anyway. So do your best in interviews, be well prepared, research the company inside out and backwards. Think of all the potential interview questions you could have and how you're going to present the best side of yourself. But in the end, you kind of have to trust the interview process a little bit and know that perhaps that wasn't the best job for you if you don't get it. But I hope you all have wonderful luck in your interviews, and I really look forward to seeing how you're going to answer this question because I don't really know the answer, so I think this will be a very fun discussion board. If you have any questions, let me know, and this is the end